I started my job here, I get this text. And it said, "Hi, I'm Dick Solomon. I really need you to call me so that we can talk about Torah study because we do it in a special way, and I want to be sure that you know." So it was very, very important. And he was always checking in with me. "You know, there's Torah study." "Yes, I know, thank you." But he was very beloved. He was beloved of our temple. He was a beloved patriarch of the family. He will be greatly missed. So Deborah and Sarah each have some words to share, and then Karen also has some words and a special poem to share. Deborah and Sarah, why don't you come up? You good?
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah. Dick Solomon was my dad. Last Saturday morning, we waited for the shift change to see Sarah, Dad's hospice nurse for the last 2 months, to say goodbye and thank you. She smiled at us with sad eyes. "I hope you don't mind me saying this," she said, "but your dad was a bit dramatic." And Sarah and I pretty much said in unison, "You mean he liked to make a production out of everything?" My sister and I responded practically in unison and laughing. It was interesting to see how much of Dad's key characteristics shone right through until the very end of his life. Dad was deliberative, meticulous, exacting. In January 2025, we had a care meeting. Dad had been living in assisted living for 6 months, so it was a check-in to adjust his plan of care to his current needs. We discussed his new oxygen use. Dad was puzzled by the oxygen concentrator that had just been wheeled into his room. "I have a question." Did he ever say that, Mom? "I have a question. How does that work?" he asked the director. "There is no tank. There is no oxygen tank," he observed. She stared blankly back at him. "Honestly, I have no idea. No one has ever asked me that before," she replied truthfully. Later, I had to research an explanatory video to help explain what he wanted to know. I still have no idea how an oxygen concentrator works, but it does not have an oxygen tank. Later on, another comment from a CNA was relayed to me. "Dick is a complex man." How true, I thought as I chuckled to myself. Dad's intellectual curiosity took him far afield. He wanted to learn. He had so many questions. He loved learning. He loved to know things. He loved authority and expert opinions. He loved planning. He loved being prepared. He loved his emergency kit in his car. It took up between 1/2 and 1/3 of the available trunk space in any car he had ever owned. He loved proofreading. He loved weather predictions. When I was little, Sarah and I got him a special radio that was only for reporting the weather. It had a lot of static. We had to be very quiet when Dad was listening to the weather radio. When he moved to Wisconsin, he was very confused by the changeable weather and its forecasting. In Wisconsin, we say, "If you don't like the weather, wait a minute." He took it personally when a forecast did not turn out as predicted. Sometimes he was personally incensed. Why don't those meteorologists know what they are doing? Where did they go to school? He would wonder aloud to me. He loved planning what to wear. He loved clothes, especially from Land's End. He loved comparison shopping. He loved Consumer Reports magazine. Other than the Torah, that was the Bible in our house. He loved fine dining. He loved art and classical music, especially WQXR in New York City. In the last decade of his life, from 82 to 92, he lived here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. This is just a sample of all the new things Dad tried and learned in this final decade. He had never lived somewhere where Jews are a tiny minority, the way we are here in Kenosha. While he bemoaned the fact that it was hard to find a Jewish deli or food for Passover here locally, he was encouraged by the opportunity to teach his fellow residents about our holidays such as Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Hanukkah. He relished his role of teaching others and enjoyed these interactions. On the plus side, he could not get over the fact that we could arrive at Beth Hillel 5 minutes before services and get any seat we wanted, especially and even at high holidays. It was very hard to keep him from coming an hour early, yes. I teach at Gateway Technical College here in town. Some of my colleagues are here. One employee learning day at Gateway, I taught a short program called Introduction to Judaism. And I brought Mom and Dad with me to join in the conversation and to help answer questions. Although initially skeptical and a little bit amused, feeling like he was Exhibit A Jew, right? I think he had a good time in the end. In 2015, Dad adapted to apartment life, moving from the house that has been his home for more than 40 years with my mom, Karen, to a 2-bedroom apartment here in Kenosha. After comparison shopping, of course. He bought a new car, learned to navigate and drive all over in a new community. He delighted picking up the grandchildren after school a few times a week. He joined the adult ed committee at Beth Hillel and slowly transformed the Torah study experience to include 15 to 20 people on a bi-weekly basis. Along with my mom, Dad attended the Beth Hillel retreat at Asrui at a camp twice. He got his first smartphone. That made him a little dangerous. He learned to text and Zoom, and he was prolific with his use of emojis and his own Bitmoji. During COVID, he participated in so many Zoom programs, and he talked about Heather so much that I started to think that Heather Cox Richardson was his personal friend. In case you're not familiar with her, she has almost 3 million followers. He loved getting groups of people together to do things. He took particular pride in an outing that he arranged for several couples to enjoy a fine dining experience at Gateway Technical College in the culinary program at the Racine campus. This excellent experience allowed him to combine several of his passions: fine dining, new friends, and it was at the college where I worked, so he took special pride in that fact. Dad loved the news, and he would keep up on all the events of the day through the TV news, as well as a daily review of several newspapers, not just one. Growing up, it was the Star-Ledger and the New York Times. Here in Kenosha, it was the Kenosha News and the Chicago Tribune. My dad joined a book study that we had here at Kenosha at Beth Hillel during COVID. The book we were choosing was called Me and White Supremacy, and we had a special study circle that was conducted over Zoom. He was one of only 2 men in the group and the oldest participant. He genuinely wanted to learn and change and grow. Back in New Jersey, his home for more than 40 years, growing up, my dad never let on that there was music inside him. Certainly, he listened to lots of music. And here's the evidence. My sister and I, both of us, played not 1, but 2 musical instruments each. I played flute and piano. Sarah initially played piano, but switched to excel at the violin and the French horn. He attended all our school concerts and the myriad groups we were part of over the years: band, orchestra, choir. Sarah was singing too, on all sorts of ensembles. And then suddenly, In his 70s, at the invitation of a new cantor at his temple in Livingston, New Jersey, he joined the choir. Sarah and I were shocked, and he excelled in this endeavor for more than a decade. When my dad got turned on to something, he went all in. After watching Sarah and I run track for so many years, he and my mom became aficionados of the sport and told us they had gotten tickets to the Melrose Games, and this went on for many years. Sarah and I never got to go to the Melrose Games, but they did.
Actually, not true.
Oh, did you go?
Yeah.
I didn't get to go. Consistently for many years. He loved tennis. He was known for wearing those terry cloth, think back to the 70s, right? Terry cloth wristbands and the headband. This was very important. It's sort of like a Bjorn Borg kind of thing. And he would wear that for mowing the lawn, for playing tennis. It was a whole look he had going on there. Yeah, if we could pull those out, that would be quite a look. He loved trying every year for 43 years at 24 Reef Circle in Millburn, New Jersey. He loved trying to grow grass in our backyard. I remember a friend, a neighbor, Mr. Geismar, maybe a gardener, maybe Harry Rosenthal, right? They told him it was a floodplain, and the big maple trees provided too much shade in the backyard. It was our backyard oasis. Undeterred, my dad kept trying. He spread old dirt, new dirt, and kept planting grass seed every few years. Sprinklers were set up in strategic locations to try to grow the lawn back there. He did not succeed. Finally, Dad's sense of humor. If you ever called him on the phone, you are probably familiar with his signature gambit, Joe's Bar and Grill. In fact, my college friend Martha took to calling him Joe, and she still does to this day. She says, "How's Joe?" He liked to confuse and entertain anyone he interacted with a bit of dry humor and to keep everyone guessing, wondering if he was joking or serious. At every single medical appointment, when asked his date of birth, he would invariably respond, February 8th, 1733. Or sometimes 1776, just to see if he could get a rise out of the nurse. His graphic T-shirts offered more opportunities to laugh and start conversations. After all, not everyone knows that vetustior umo means older than dirt in Latin. Finally, if you ever encountered my dad in the 1980s in the Millburn, New Jersey high school bleachers watching my sister and I run, he would have been easy to spot. As the rabbi mentioned, he wearing his signature green and white umbrella hat, which we found the other day in its original Ziploc plastic sleeve. He would be cheering us loudly from the sidelines, not caring at all that his teenage daughters were dying of embarrassment. But this was just another way Dad was saying, "I love you." My dad never wrote a book, but if he did, it would be called How to Win at Life. These might be some of the lessons imparted in the contents. I was trying to think of a name for what this is, and all I could think of was, right now there's like a trend in education, and everybody's always talking about generational trauma, and they're talking about people that have experienced things like abuse or different things in their lives and how it can be combated in the educational environment or in therapy. And I thought, but what's the opposite of that? What's the opposite of that? Because that's what I experienced. So I came up with a name with my Aunt Sally yesterday called Generational Resilience. I'm not sure if that's the right name, but we're working on it. Here are the 4 elements of generational resilience that Sarah and I were lucky enough to experience. The 4 things are keep going, stick together, watch and learn, and be yourself. Number 1 is keep going. Just keep thriving in the face of adversity. There are ups and downs in business and family life, in finances, even something crazy like COVID or his final medical struggles with congestive heart failure and kidney disease. Just keep going means making meaning and having fun every day. If the only thing you can do is send a text with an emoji, that is awesome. Stick together. As a family, we stuck together through everything. The family meeting was an invaluable tool to get us through it all. He made a little bit of a production in the same room, around the table, face to face, talking and listening to each other. We aired things out and made room to move forward. It was a little bit of a production that Dad insisted upon, but it was worth it. Watch and learn. Passing down strengths. Here's an example. Dad knew everyone's name that he interacted with. That means every staff person at every doctor's office. The reason I know this is because I became privy to his phone and his phone information because sometimes I needed to help him. And in the contacts for every doctor's office was every name of every person that he interacted with. The person who answered the phone, the medical assistant that took his blood pressure, the techs that helped with blood tests. Every single person was in his contacts. By knowing that, putting those notes in his phone, he made it personal, and that deepened all his relationships, and it helped him to get many things done. He had his barber and his hearing aid specialist doing visits for him where he lived. They were coming to him, and I think that was because they had a relationship with my dad, and it meant enough to them that they would come to him, which was amazing. I have watched my sister interact in the last few days and on the phone and in person with so many people. And the first thing that she always says is, "What's your name?" And she writes it down. And in my classes, when I teach, where's Patty? Where's Patty? There she is. When I teach, I learn everybody's name on the first day of class. And I remember it, and I want to pronounce it the way they want it pronounced. And I don't want them to have an Americanized name. I want them to have their name the way they want it pronounced. And I make it my business to remember. I didn't realize until this weekend, but I think that we both got that from my father. Be who you are. This is the fourth and final element. My dad taught us through Judaism our religious and cultural identity and our family values. He gave us a gift of our culture and community identity, and like him, I believe we will all keep learning who we are and the best ways to express ourselves throughout our lifetime. In February and March, I held his last birthday party. Many of you were there. I helped him send out his Valentine's cards. He gave me permission to sell his car. We inherited the car emergency kit. It has been distributed among 4 people, and we all have enough. My mom filed their taxes, which was a task that he traditionally took part in. Dad voted. That was very important to him, and it is interesting that today is the election day. He wrote his own obituary. He was very insistent that this was a part of the final tasks that he wanted to complete. There were 3 drafts. There were many edits. There was much proofreading. He visited with Sarah and me and Mom and David and Mira and Doran. We sang Shehechianu. We said Shema. I sang Lovely Moon. I never knew that was a prayer, but it is. We said, I love you. Metaphorically speaking, Dad swept the floor, turned out the light, and closed the door. He breathed his last breath. Switch microphone. You're good.
Not really, I'm good. Fine. Hi. Thank you all for coming. It's been, I'm going to say, joyful to see the community that my sister has, that she's made here with her family, and that you have all been very welcoming to my parents when they moved out here to do that. And it's really nice to see what kind of support and how loving and how everybody cares about all of them. One of the things I've been thinking about, talking to everybody in the past few days, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got their story with Dick or Uncle Dick or Cousin Dick or Mr. Solomon or however anybody knew who he was. And one thing I think that would be very joyful would be if everybody feels in the next year that they would potentially be able to write their story down, I'll make sure you have my contact information. It was in an email that I sent out, but I'll make sure that Deborah and Karen have it. And if you could write it down and send it to me, don't email it to me. Send it to me in snail mail so I don't have to print it out, please. And I would like to make a book of Dick Solomon stories. So if you could find that within your hearts to do something like that, I think that would be very joyful to celebrate next year when
Yeah.
we're here for that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you all for coming. I'm gonna wait. See
Okay. Do you want to go?
help her with the stairs.
Yep, she's good.
I'm good.
That microphone is.
Wow. I couldn't have imagined being up here doing this. But there are a few things that I want to say. There are a few things that I've learned in the last 9 months. The first one was that I'm stronger than I ever knew. The second is that Dick and I were so fortunate to be welcomed with open arms into the congregation of Beth Hillel Temple. Everyone helped us transition comfortably from New Jersey to Wisconsin, and I thank all of you for that. And I want to read a poem that was written by my maternal grandfather, Ilo Orleans, who was a lawyer, but also a published poet. Excuse me. It expresses in a very special way all the things that have been said about Dick in the last few days. Thank you. The title of the poem is Without a Trace. With beating wings, a bird will rise and wing its way across the skies. It glides and sweeps through trackless space, but leaves no trace, Through swirling seas, a ship sails on, its wave-churned course is quickly gone, and on the ocean's furrowed face, it leaves no trace, The arrow parts the air in flight, and in its haste, it streaks from sight. Where is the path of its swift race? There is no trace. Man knows no choice of death or birth, but as he journeys on the earth, a worthy life by heaven's grace shall ever have immortal place. It shall not pass without a trace. Thank you.
May the memory of Dick Solomon endure among us as a blessing. In your own time, O God, when we too are called to enter eternity, may we leave this life secure in the faith that in your light we shall see light. In life and in death, we cannot go where you are not, and where you are, hope endures. Sustained by this assurance, we invoke your name, Almighty God. I'd like to invite to the Bima our Rabbi Emerita, Rabbi Dina Feingold, for El Malei Rachamim, and I'd like to invite you please to rise.
El Malei Rachamim Shochen Mamromim Hamse Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת בתולי בן יחיאל וחנה, שהלך לעולמו. בעל הרחמים, יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו. וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved one who has entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold him. Beteleb ben Yechiel Bechana, in the embrace of your wings, secure his soul in eternity. Adonai, he is yours. He will rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Please be seated.
Thank you, Rabbi. We will be going in procession to Benaiah Zedek Cemetery to have military honors for Dick. For those of you who will be going with us, please, as you exit the temple, have a flag and place it on top your car. Also have your bright headlights on. Remember, if we go through a red light, continue on with the procession. Do not stop. I promise you we'll get you there safe. For those of you who will be helping us as pallbearers this afternoon, please go right directly to our casket coach and we will bring Dick to you. Thank you so much.